Coming up, the number of natives teaching, researching, and working at Arizona State University reaches a milestone. We learn more. Plus, we learn about a new show that looks at the scientific and cultural impact of Indigenous knowledge. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
Arizona PBS is proud to support Indian Country Today. For 6 decades, we've provided television programs and now digital content. But we go beyond that, sending outreach teams across Arizona, offering workshops in language and literacy, family engagement and community outreach, and supporting tribal communities with early learning and school readiness resources. Join us at azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Gu'atsi Hopa. Thank you for joining the ICT Newscast. All eyes were on the NFL's Washington football team Wednesday. The team announced its new name and logo, the Washington Commanders. For decades, Indigenous people have called for the team to change its name that many activists deemed racist. It was ultimately pressure from sponsorships that resulted in the change. In July 2020, a group of 88 investors representing $620 billion called on major companies like Nike, FedEx, and Pepsi to suspend sponsorship with the team. The football team first stopped using its R-word mascot, but took nearly 18 months to officially choose its replacement. Following the change, reactions poured in from around the country. The president of the National Congress of American Indians, Fawn Sharp, called on the organization to do more, saying in part, "Without an apology, without any measure of accountability, the NFL and Snyder are simply commanding a continued course of open, intentional, and profit-driven racism and erasure." We asked ICT regular contributor Holly Cook Macaro if this was a victory for Native organizers.
I say yes, this is unequivocally a victory. But is there something more? I know that Amanda Blackhorse has expressed some frustration that it's more than just a sorry that should be offered to both the tribal communities and to those who were on the front lines of this.
The team took more than 50 years to change its name. It first began using it in 1932. Tribal nations have reached a settlement over the toll of opioids in Native communities. On Tuesday, a court filing indicated 3 drug makers, including Johnson & Johnson, will pay a settlement totaling $590 million. The litigation comes after years of tribal leaders saying their communities were being hit hard by the crisis. One study cited in the settlement said that Native people had the highest per capita rate of opioid overdose of any population in the year 2015. All federally recognized tribes in the U.S. will be able to participate in the settlements even if they did not sue over opioids. Each tribe will be required to use money from the settlement to deal with the opioid epidemic. Ron Allen is the chairman of the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe in Washington state. He called it a big deal for tribes to reach their own settlement. Allen says he doesn't expect his nation, which is made up of about 550 people, to get much from the settlement, but it will help in its efforts to build a healing center that will address the issue. Opioids are used to block pain signals from the brain and the body and are found to be highly addictive. South Dakota is working on 2 bills that will allow Native people to hunt, fish, and visit state parks for free. Enrolled citizens of federally recognized tribes who are located entirely or partially in the state would be exempt from fees for hunting or fishing licenses and permits. And another bill would allow those same citizens an exemption from fees to enter or camp in the state parks. Both bills were proposed by Rosebud Sioux citizen and State Representative Sean Bordeaux. Bordeaux says he proposed the bills after seeing a similar law enacted in Minnesota this year. New York State also currently waives hunting and fishing licenses for enrolled tribal citizens. The two bills are currently under consideration by South Dakota's state legislature. In New Mexico, a site with images dating back 8,000 years was spray painted with racist slurs and symbols. On January 18th, officials from the Bureau of Land Management discovered that vandals had struck 10 petroglyphs. The La Cienega petroglyphs were defaced with spray painted images of pentacles, swastikas, and racial slurs. Those responsible could face felony charges with penalties of up to 2 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. The All Pueblo Council of Governors released a statement on the act, saying in part, "We renew our call for all entities, including federal and state agencies and the New Mexico congressional delegation, to take swift action to protect and preserve the Caja del Rio in consultation with pueblos and tribes." In December of 2020, the organization passed a resolution affirming the historic significance of the cultural landscape. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, Lee Francis is back. He'll tell us about his new web series called Indigenous. Arizona State University is celebrating a milestone with the high number of Native scholars working throughout the university system. The university now employs approximately 60 Indigenous scholars, which is the largest cohort ever at ASU. Among those Indigenous scholars are Pulitzer Prize winners, MacArthur Genius Award winners, and others who have secured grants from the National Institutes of Health and other major foundations. Leading this effort is Brian Brayboy. He is the director of the Center for Indian Education and is ASU's senior advisor to the president on American Indian Affairs. He joins us today to tell us more about these outstanding scholars. Hi, Brian. Welcome to our newscast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So tell us about some of these faculty members at ASU.
Well, they're a pretty remarkable bunch, as you've just noted. We've got there's a scholar named Natalie Diaz, who's a well-known poet and creative writer, and Pulitzer Prize winner, and a MacArthur Genius Award winner. There's Rebecca Sandifer, a sociologist who does really interesting work looking at rent disparities and other kinds of things with large sets of quantitative data, who's also been a MacArthur Award winner. There's Don Fixico, who is a historian who I think is in the midst of writing his book. And so there you've got those, and then there's a group of new and emerging folks who are on 30 under 30 lists, who are doing really remarkable work looking at everything from climate change to what's the role of Native representation in plays and other kinds of things. And so what I really love about this group of scholars is that they really span the gamut of both in terms of their seniority and some of their accomplishments and what they're going to do, but also the kind of work that they're doing. We've got this phenomenal Native Hawaiian scholar who just led an all-female 16-day sail out to a marine protected area, and she's really drawing phenomenal attention to the role of oceans in the future of our planet.
I'm really curious, how did ASU get to this position? Was it, you all hiring one person and then thought maybe I'll hire another, or was this really a curated plan that sort of took many years to achieve?
It's really taken a while for us to get to where we are at ASU. I think in 2014, 2013, there were about 30, not quite 30, 24 of us. And I think part of what we did at that point was really start to be intentional and deliberate in the work that we are doing. So part of what we did is we ended up getting senior leadership approval President Michael Crow is a pretty extraordinary leader. He's now in his 20th year at ASU. One of our design aspirations at ASU is that we will leverage our place. And so we've been really thoughtful about where we are as an institution in the Southwest on the homelands of O'odham and Peepush peoples, which becomes really an important piece for us. And then we started working with deans and directors and saying to them, look, there are these amazing people out there. Let's find a way to bring them in. And here's how they help you advance the work that you are doing. And so one of the things I think that when we started this effort, part of what President Crow asked is, what would be the headline in a newspaper like Indian Country Today if you were going to write this story? And I said, I think we'd frame it from serendipity to intentionality. And so that's what we've really tried to do, is move from just sort of hoping someone would apply to a job to really building a plan and executing that plan over periods of time. And so that's kind of where we are and how we ended up here. It's been very deliberate. It has been about persistence and a focus on what our university needs, where we think these faculty can contribute, what our native students, but all of our students need. I mean, I think that's the other piece for us at ASU, which is these incredible faculty aren't just great for Indigenous students. They're great for all of our students because they bring different sets of perspectives. They bring rigorous methods and ideas for their work that's doing. And so it really helps make the experience at Arizona State University great for everyone.
Given that there are so many Indigenous faculty at ASU, do you think that almost puts pressure on other major universities, even private colleges and universities, to also hire more Indigenous faculty?
Well, I guess I hope so. I hope that they're feeling some of the pressure out there. We will often hear, well, there's no one doing X, Y, or Z who's a native person. And part of what has become clear to us over time is there's always someone out there who's doing the work. I think you've got to pay attention and you've got to look. I don't think we started, and I to be perfectly honest with you, if there's pressure on them, I think that that's great. That's not the work that drives us. But I do think that there is a real need to be able to understand that there is enormous Indigenous talent everywhere. And so to the extent that other institutions go, we need to start paying attention to this. I think the work is fantastic. I think that effort will be really great. So yeah, I hope there's a bit of pressure, but I also think that we're going to keep moving forward. We're in the midst of recruiting 3 or 4 more faculty to add to our list.
I want to continue this conversation, even though we have a short time left, because I think this next question is important. In academia, there's this large conversation around tenured faculty, which is this idea that a professor is hired on to conduct research and to make really important discoveries for fields across a lot of genres of life. So I'm curious, with ASU, is that something that you all will continue to push for, is tenured faculty?
100%. We are about research and discovery that serves the public good. The faculty that we have now are doing that. They are tenure track faculty, and a number of them are tenured. And for us, the goal is to not just bring them to ASU but to also make sure that they thrive and that they make ASU a better place. So absolutely, positively, we've got to keep doing this, and a focus on tenured faculty is really part of the success.
Well, Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll be right back. Indigenous is a new web show devoted to sharing the past and present scientific and cultural impact of Indigenous creations and knowledge. It is written and hosted by Laguna Pueblo citizen Lee Francis IV, a self-described Indigen nerd. The 12-episode series covers a range of global Indigenous topics while breaking down science, culture, and history. Welcome back to our newscast, Lee.
Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. Thank you.
Talk to us about how this show came to be.
So this was the brainchild of New Mexico PBS and Vision Makers Media. They had this idea of the show called Indigigenius, really wanting to highlight what the scientific and scientific contributions and innovation of Native and Indigenous peoples, both in the Americas and abroad. And I was contacted, because I'm down in Albuquerque, I was contacted to come in potentially to write. And I had the opportunity to audition to be a host as well. And so that was, it was very fortuitous. So I ended up, they got a twofer. They got a writer and a host to be able to go on camera and to host this wonderful show with so many amazing folks to help create this thing.
What are some of the stories that you actually tell?
So we have 12 episodes. They are web-based, so it's part of the New Mexico PBS digital. So it's all online, and we have 12 different episodes that cover anything from blue corn mush and why the scientific properties, so why that works for all my Pueblo peeps out there, and my New Mexico fam of why it works, the science behind it, through waterproofing. For our Alaska relatives, down to bead making. So we talk about wampum and how that's important, and that not only the skill, but we cover not just science aspects, but like this range of sciences. So we talk about political science, and we talk about treaties. And our Northeastern relatives who are making original treaties with folks. So we cover this wide range around science with these 12 episodes, and it's great. They're small, they're quick. They're about 5 to 7 minutes each, and they're out there for folks to just start a conversation, right? Like at 5 to 7 minutes, it's not going to be like a big old documentary. They're going to be very quick. They're going to be things that are for this generation and this day and age, and that's what we put together.
And what has been the reaction so far?
Just posting the intro and posting that this is coming up, it's been huge on like my Facebook page, which I was not expecting. I was like, folks see whatever. They're just like, oh my gosh, tell us when this is going. And now, New Mexico PBS is putting it out. So, they've got a whole thing, and Vision Maker Media has been just incredible. They've been posting about it. So I think so many people are looking for this type of media, right? Like, how are we creating this type of media, even in these spheres? Like, we have these great influencers, we've got all sorts of, histories and all these other things. And so here's another aspect to indigeneity and to the genius of Indigenous people who were creating this kind of stuff that we're still using today. Essentially, it's just modified and with fancier equipment and, like buttons. But I was like, we have been doing this stuff for thousands of years. And so recognizing that, I think a lot of the folks that I know are recognizing that, really excited, both native and non-native, because non-native folks are just like, really? And I was like, yeah, this is kind of the stuff that we've been talking about for a while.
And why was it important to you? This actually might seem like a silly question, but why was it important to you to highlight those stories of Indigenous excellence that have existed for hundreds and thousands of years?
I think because too often we are, our identity is very historicized, and it's also romanticized. So it's the noble savage, or it's, this sort of like ephemeral plains warrior with the hair dancing in the wind. And no disrespect to my amazing brothers and sisters that got the hair that can dance in the wind. They're amazing. But, there's this idea that American pop culture really thinks that that's the representation of Native folks. And this was important to me to showcase that Native folks have been trading, inventing, creating, communicating. All of these things that we talk about are things that we had built as societies long before colonial powers intercepted our trajectory. Because I always feel that like we got kind of intercepted early on, and had we another 1,000 years, and we still may, but had we another 1,000 years, we're looking like Wakanda. Right? We are already building these types of things and these types of societies, and so few people really know about that. And even myself, I learned some new stuff on the show, doing the research, being like, I never knew that was a thing. And checking with like Indigenous scholars who've been writing about it was so eye-opening for me as well.
I love that you brought that up because that actually happens to me so often when I'm interviewing sources. I learn new things all the time. And you think, if you're a native person, you know a lot about a certain topic, but I learn new things all the time. So I'm curious, was this show meant for native people or was this meant for non-native people? Tell us more about your intended audience.
First and foremost, I write for Native folks. That is always going to be my intended audience, is the fact of saying, like, I want to write, and really not necessarily for, but about, right? I want to, it's my, I think my responsibility to make sure that those stories are heard. So it's like, hey, this is an honoring for Native folks. This is us telling these stories and bringing in, amazing scholars or amazing knowledge that's just the kind of, like, again, it's 5 minutes. So it's just the tip of the iceberg for folks to learn more. And secondary, there's that audience of non-native folks to be able to learn more, to finally understand that, like, we're not just talking about things. There's some science for it. We figured it out so long ago.
So tell us, we only have a short time left. Where can we find more information about this new web series?
You can check out New Mexico PBS and Vision Maker Media. Those are going to be the two places. You can also check out my Instagram, which is Pueblo Jones, and I'll be posting all about this. Link in the bio, so you can see everything over there. You can follow both of those on Twitter and any social media, and you can check out the websites as well.
Well, Lee Francis, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Toai, everybody.
Liberty Wildlife nurtures the nature of Arizona through wildlife rehabilitation, education, and conservation. And it's also a feather repository. Patty Tholahongba has this report.
He's so cute. So this is Quana. He's a turkey vulture. They love the sunshine, love the warmth.
Quana is just one of dozens of birds that live at Liberty Wildlife. This sanctuary is a partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. These are birds that have been injured and need medical care. Some recover and can be released back into the wild, while others live out their lives here. Robert Mesta is the director of the Non-Eagle Feather Repository Program. He saw a decline in the number of requests for feathers in 2020.
But it was obvious from what we saw around us in the Native American community, powwows were being canceled, gatherings were being canceled, and as a result, people just weren't requesting feathers because they weren't using them.
Mesta is retired from the Fish and Wildlife Service. He's an ornithologist with an area of expertise in the recovery of endangered birds of prey. He directed the national and international programs to recover the California condor, the bald eagle, and other birds of prey. He says they get some feathers from police agencies, zoos, museums, and other wildlife sanctuaries. What about the birds here that are, on exhibit here? Do you also take the feathers from the birds that live here when they die naturally?
Yeah, well, a good source of the feathers we have in the inventory actually come from our own collection. We have birds here that we had for many, many years, and they molt their feathers every year, and the keepers are instructed to collect those feathers for us, and of course they go straight to our repository.
Really? I didn't know that.
The law doesn't allow Mesta to distribute these eagle feathers when they molt or when the bird dies. Instead, he sends them to the Eagle Repository in Denver, Colorado.
I like to joke that they only have to worry about two species, right? The bald and golden eagle, and we have to deal with the other 900 plus species that exist in the United States.
He's filled feather requests from people from 210 different tribes in 45 states. You have to be from a federally recognized tribe in the U.S. to get the free feathers.
In this drawer alone right here, we have Harris hawks and Fujian's hawks, red-tailed hawks, great horned owls, Swainson's hawks, and zone-tailed hawks, gray hawks, common black hawks. So literally, we just basically have thousands and thousands of feathers behind these cabinets right here.
Some people request the entire bird. For those large orders, he has freezers stocked with several species.
Most of our donations are actually whole carcasses. And we store them in a series of freezers by species. And for instance, this is Swainson's hawk. So these will be all Swainson's hawks, and these are red tails, and more red tails here. And so this is how we store them, keep them frozen.
And sometimes people who receive the feathers send him photos of what they've made.
And also, we've gotten some really nice notes. You know, the feathers help pull a family through a period when there was cancer. An adoption, the loss of a child. It really makes the effort worthwhile. It really makes me believe in what we do.
He encourages people to visit the website libertywildlife.org to send in a request.
I feel fortunate to be here. I think it's a big responsibility. The repository has the potential to affect thousands of Native Americans in a very, very positive way. And so I take the job very, very seriously, both professionally and personally.
And fly back over. And Squilly.
In Phoenix, Patty Tholahungva, ICT News.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Thank you for watching. For all the latest updates, visit IndianCountryToday.com. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.